it wouldn't be true service. Do you get what I'm saying? Sorry, I'm trying to communicate it, but if you're attempting to do something out of a heart of bettering yourself, then regardless of the action, your motive is already sinful because you're doing it out of a heart of selfishness. But if you do it out of a love of a God that's already done it for you, it changes everything. Now all of a sudden, it's not about striving, it's about worship. And all that effort that I've just poured into striving and trying to make myself good enough can be poured into worship of a God who's already done it for me. That's huge. That's huge. Sorry, that bladder's coming up here. It's huge. See, fear can inspire change, but it can't actually inspire repentance. Fear, it can give us motivation, but it can't it can give modification, but it can't fix a heart. And fear can inspire respect, but it can't demand worship. So here's 5 reasons that I've come up with to strive in light of the gospel, in light of the fact that you're actually not earning yourself a place in heaven. It's already earned for you. Or you're not even earning yourself the right to come into the presence of God, who is holy. It's been given to you. You're wearing the coat that somebody else has bought for you and traded you for your garbage. 5 reasons to strive. Number 1. Oh, it's not that great a picture, sorry, but it's good. That's me and my dad. Yeah, I know. I got on my little jean jacket, and it was cool because it was the 80s still. So you can tell by my dad's stash. But this may have been, I wasn't sure. I was trying to probe my mom quietly today to see if that was my first trip. It's the only picture I have of the trip. Not that there's lots of pictures around. I'm not saying that, But anyways, I had available this one. And I was excited for this trip and why I'm using this is to tell a story, is that love mirrors. Love mirrors. And when you come into a heart of love for God, and when you come into a heart of worship for God, you want to mirror God. When I was young on this trip, I'm not sure if it was a trip, there were several. I lived in a family, we didn't go camping. We hopped in the truck with Dad, and it was awesome. It was like your week with Dad, and you would just talk the whole week, and I learned more lessons in my life over the dash lights of a truck than, sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's not even for Jesus, that's just my dad. I used to mirror his movements. He'd be driving the big rig, and he's sitting there, and it's a big wheel, and I'd be over in my little seat, and I'd be pretending that I'm doing it too, and he would hit the air brakes, and I would, do the noise, and I'd pretend I'm shifting, and if he got flipped off, and I would, no, I wouldn't. He was good. He was good with us. But there's also just another kind of quick little thing with that I was talking about Holly with this weekend. I won't tell the whole story because I won't. It would be eventual that we would have to stop. And in my mirroring of Dad, when we would have to stop and go into a dingy kind of truck stop in the south, he would just carry me the entire time. And I just thought there was something in that, the fact that, yeah, I want to mirror you, but you know what, son, you can't mirror my walking through this place because you could get hurt. So I'm just going to keep you really close right now. I'm excited, I get sentimental with Dad stuff because we're expecting. I'm not actually expecting, as you can see, but we are, and I've learned that it's a boy, and it makes me much more excited because I don't really know anything about women at all, or girls. I never will, I suppose, but yeah, I know. Nobody does. Other than women, not even women, yeah. Okay, sorry. Anyway. But one of the things that I'm excited, and this may sound really weird and perverse and just bad, but I'm excited to teach my little guy to hate the things that I hate. Like the New York Yankees. I hate the Yanks. I do. They buy talent. They don't farm anything. They're just brutal. Who knows? In 30 years, if Steinbrenner dies, then maybe I'll never like the Yankees. I'm sorry. I'm trying to justify it. I won't. And I'm going to teach my son, like his father, to hate the Yankees. And that's part of mirroring. And it says that God hates sin. So in part of mirroring and part of loving God is to hate things that he hates. Part 2. In 5 Reasons to Strive is simply titled Living Sacrifice. And as you know, we did a whole sermon on it, but Romans 12, 1 and 2. Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. When you grasp the depths of your own sin and your own depravity and your own sin, then it just gives you a deeper appreciation for the depths of God's grace. And the only response in that is worship. And the only response is to perfect. The truest form of worship. Worship is always teamed in the Bible with sacrifice. Actually, that story about Abraham and Isaac, that's the first mention of worship in the Bible, the word worship, which is not ironic. Worship is sacrifice. There's a good line in a song that says, God, if you provide the fire, I'll provide the sacrifice. And it's, in my mind, it takes me right to the story of Elijah at Mount Carmel, where, you're out there and, but instead of putting a bull up there, he's just like, I'm the sacrifice. And God sends a fire. And fire, you can run in. Anyway, you're hearing what I'm saying. Number 3 is freedom. That's number 3 in reasons to strive. Reasons to strive in light of justification. Galatians 5 verse 1 says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." But I see that people have used that verse and have used this whole concept of freedom in a Braveheart sense. Freedom! They use it incorrectly, and they use it wrong in their brains, and they use it to manipulate the gospel into a means of their own selfishness and a means of justifying their own garbage, and a means of abusing God's grace, which I'm guilty of. True. Sorry, I get on these rants where I preach against somebody, and then God quickly says, "That's you," and I'm like, crap. It is me. I know it's me, and then I just get really humbled right away in my own mind. That's what just happened. Sorry, I'm just ranting. Freedom is not anarchy. Freedom is, we don't have a definition. We seem to think that freedom equals lawlessness, and it doesn't. And it's a weird verse, and it's a verse that I skim over all the time, but I just was thinking about freedom, and it's kind of popped at me. It's 1 Corinthians 7:17. It's in a chapter with a whole bunch of other stuff, but I don't know. "Nevertheless, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them, just as God has called them. This is a rule I lay down to all the churches." It's kind of a verse that you skim over, but I think if you kind of dwell on that, each person should live as a believer in whatever situation the Lord has assigned to them. I think when you grasp that, that is freedom. Fact of the matter is, what you think freedom is in your anarchy, you're still following a wicked heart. So that's actually not freedom. You won't actually know what freedom is until you're free to be what you're created to be. And the only person who knows what you're created to be is your creator. It's not rocket science, I guess, but it took a long time to get. The fact is, you've been freed from a yoke of slavery and a yoke of sin. And the fact is that, while we use this to abuse God's grace, we're totally missing the point that sin is rooted in deception. Always, even from the fall of man, where Satan in the snake came and tempted Eve, and then Adam. And then Eve. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's always rooted in deception. Is always there. Temptation is actually deception. Temptation is believing a lie over believing God's truth. So temptation would be, I'm tempted. Whatever. I'm tempted to go out and get loaded. Well, that's believing a lie that's going to fulfill me, and that I'm not already fulfilled. I'm tempted to have premarital sex. Well, that's believing a lie that's going to fill me up, and that's going to make me happy, and that's going to give me a sense of belonging. Where if I would actually believe the truth of God's word, He lays it out for me. That's actually what you're seeking in that is only available in Him. and then you're allowed to have sex later. Whatever. But if you seek, sorry, I'm going off on a relationship rant just because I feel it. Relationships are not like addition, they're like multiplication. And I'm going to explain that. In addition, a half plus a half equals a whole. All right? 1/2 equals 1 whole. Y'all with me? Grade 4 fractions? Okay. In multiplication, a half times a half equals a quarter. So if you have 2 half people, right? I'm not whole, you are not whole. If we get together, we're not whole. But if I'm a whole person and she's a whole person and we get together, then we are 1. We are 1 times 1 and now we are 1. But if we were 1 plus 1 or a half plus a half, we're not 1, we're a quarter, we're even less together. You picking up what I'm saying? So if you believe, I call it the Jerry Maguire line because that line, "you complete me," in Jerry Maguire, is the worst and most theologically damaging lines as far as relationships are concerned. Because if you look at another person to complete you, you are setting them up to fail because they can't do that because only Christ can do that. So not only are you looking to the wrong source, they can't even do that. So you're setting them up to fail. You're going to be disappointed and you're going to end up breaking up. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. When we did it as a night, I'm not even preaching this sermon, but I got to go on it for a bit because I just get really... It's youth ministry, and you got to say it 1,000 times. But we used an analogy of a piece of tape, and we stuck 2 pieces of tape together, and then we had them separated. And then we had them stick them together again, and then separate it. And the more times we did that, the less ability that tape had to adhere to each other. One of 2 things happened. Either the tape lost its stickiness, or the tape became damaged in the separation process. Damaged to a point that it could not adhere to whatever it was designed to adhere to. All right? You picking up the metaphor? Sorry. Back to the sermon.